Jai Ho, my dear students. I am Ratnakar Suryamshi from SK Public School. In the last class, since the last class, we are learning about the growing middle class envisages an end to privileges. How middle class within the third estate puts an end to the privileges enjoyed by the first estate. Clergy, and the second estate. Nobility. So about all those things we have studied. And in this topic, we have started to learn about what happened. Correct? Now, as I told you before, 1789 also peasants, farmers, workers, they participated in revolts or the fights or the struggles against or the movements against the raise in the price of the food grains as well as against the increasement of tax. But they did not have plan, and that was left to those within the third estate who were prosperous and who had access to education and new ideas. That class was called as middle class. These were prosperous. Why they were prosperous? Because of an expanding foreign trade or overseas trade as well as manufacture of goods such as silk and cotton. Those were either brought or exported. So with that, the middle class people became richer or wealthier. They earned their wealth by this. And then I told you these people had access to education, new ideas, and as they were rich, and these people or the members of the middle class within the third estate, they had an idea. Correct? No? Merchants as well as the manufacturers as well as lawyers, even administrative officials were the part of the third estate. They believed or they thought that no one within the society or no group in the society should be privileged by birth, and a person's social position must be on his merit, must depend on his merit. On the basis of the strength of a person, the social position of that person should depend. This was their thought. And even I told you that their ideas were inspired by the ideas of the various philosophers, great philosophers. Like I told you, John Locke. Even their ideas I told you about equality, freedom and equal opportunities. They had these ideas. And equality of laws, I told you, freedom as well as equality in opportunities. So these all the ideas were given. They inspired all the ideas. They were taken by the ideas of John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Montesquieu. These were the philosophers. Those who introduced those ideas, especially about John Locke. I told you that John Locke, he refuted what? The divine right of the monarchy as well as the absolute right of the king or monarch. Divine, I told you already. Correct? No, divine means the thought of divine only opposed. By whom? By the John Locke, as I told you in the last period. Kings thought that the right to rule the empire was given by the god. This was opposed by John Locke. Even he opposed the absolute right or the power of the monarchy, uncontrollable power or the right of the monarchy, king, ruler, was also opposed by John Locke in his book called The Two Treatises of the Government. And then Rousseau, coming to the point about Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau had written a book called The Social Contract. The Social Contract, it was the book written by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a philosopher. And then in this book, he further forwarded the idea which was given by the John Locke in his book called The Two Treatises of Government. Whatever the John Locke had written in this book, that was forwarded, that was carried forward. By whom? By the Jean-Jacques Rousseau. What he did, by proposing a system of government here, by proposing a system or the form of government based on social contract between people and their representatives. Rousseau said in his book called The Social Contract, he said that there is a need to form a government based on a social contract between people and their representatives. I mean, there should be only two things, that is people and their representatives in government. There should not be any middleman like a king, like a monarch. Which means indirectly Rousseau also opposed the existence of monarch in his book called The Social Contract. Then coming to another philosopher, that is Montesquieu. Montesquieu had written a book called The Spirit of the Laws. Which one? The Spirit of the Laws. Montesquieu had written this, and in this Montesquieu opposed division. Montesquieu opposed same. You know that Montesquieu opposed the concentration of the power, obviously, and then see a division of power within the government. He proposed here. First listen, once again I am telling this. Montesquieu opposed the concentration of power into one person's hand or into one organization of the government or one organ or one institution of the government. This was opposed. And Montesquieu proposed a division of the power. A division of the power of the government within the three organs of the government. Montesquieu proposed a division of power within the government in its three organs. Which are those three organs? Obviously you know those three organs. First one, legislature or legislative. Then which one? Judiciary, and then executive. See, these were the three organs of the government. Montesquieu proposed this for the first time in his book called The Spirit of Laws, that the power of the government should be divided into three organs. Which are the three organs? Legislative, judiciary and executive. This was proposed by Montesquieu in his book called The Spirit of the Laws. I mean, there should not be the concentration of power in any one organ, in any one person or in any one institution of the government. The power has to be distributed among the three organs of the government. That is legislative, judiciary and executive. This is the idea proposed by Montesquieu in his book called The Spirit of the Laws. And then see, this model of the government was put into force in the USA after when those 13 colonies declared independence from the Britain or from the British. At that time, those 13 colonies of America, they came together and formed one country, that is United States of America. So the model which was proposed by Montesquieu, that was enforced, that was put into force in United States of America. I mean, the power was divided into legislative, judiciary and executive. This was brought into force in America for the first time, that is USA, when those 13 colonies got independence. But who helped to get the independence to those 13 colonies? Obviously France helped under the 16th Louis. We have learnt already. The American institution, and here see, the American Constitution and its guarantee of individual rights was an important sample for political thinkers in France. I mean, the American Constitution as well as the guarantee of individual rights. Obviously individual rights means fundamental rights of each person. Those are called as individual rights. The American Constitution, individual rights of the people were an important example. These all were an important example for the political thinkers of France. They took these American style, American things only as an example in France. Then see here, one more important point. The ideas of the philosophers were discussed intensively in saloons as well as in coffee shops or in coffee houses, and spread among people through books and newspapers. I mean, the ideas of these philosophers like John Locke, or it may be Jean-Jacques Rousseau, or it may be Montesquieu. The ideas of these all the philosophers were discussed in the saloons, I mean hair cutting shops, as well as in the beauty parlors we consider, as well as in the coffee houses or in the coffee shops. There also the ideas of these philosophers were discussed, and among to spread the ideas of these people in various books as well as in newspapers, the ideas of these philosophers began to be printed, began to be published. And these were frequently read loud in groups for the people, for the benefit of those who couldn't read and write. I mean, to make these ideas to reach uneducated people also in France. The articles which were written about these ideas of the philosophers were read aloud in the groups where people couldn't read and write. I mean, to reach these ideas to the uneducated people also, the educated people used to read aloud the ideas of these people which were published in newspapers or in the books. This was done in France. And the news that Louis XVI planned to impose further taxes to be able to meet the expenses of the state generated anger and protest against the system of privileges. What happened? See, the news at this time, the news was spreaded that the 16th Louis, the King of France, was going to impose increase further more taxes to meet the needs of the administration as well as to maintain that extravagant palace of Versailles. To meet all those expenses, the king was decided to increase tax or to impose further taxes. When this news spreaded across the France, then the whole state, angriness was generated. I mean, extreme angriness was generated among the people of the third estate as the king was decided to increase the tax. And protest against the system of privileges were started. I mean, protest or the fight or the struggle against the system of privileges of the first and second estate were started in France. So this is about the first concept of the French Revolution, that is the society of France during the late 18th century. So this is all about the first concept of the French Revolution, and in the next class we will start about the second concept of the French Revolution. Thank you.